We ready? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you. So our prelude this morning is a moving picture show. And so please, if you want, join us up front if you'd like to move closer so that you can get a better look at the show. Thank you. Thank you. That was lovely. So welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Pittsburgh. Today, I believe, is Sunday, July 7th. My name is Robert P.M. I am a white male in his mid-30s. I have brownish, reddish hair with a mustache, glasses. I'm wearing a green textured shirt, a black undershirt, and some pearl earrings that my mother gifted to me yesterday. Let's see. Yes. So with us today is our guest speaker, Michael DeSantis. They joined us last month as well. Our minister, Reverend Kate Walker, is off today. And just to share with you a little bit of Michael's bio, Michael DeSantis uses they, them pronouns. They were born and raised in Pittsburgh, and Michael is a proud Yinzer, an aspirant for UU ministry. Michael recently graduated from the Union Theological Seminary in New York and will begin a ministry internship at the Jefferson Unitarian Church in Golden, Colorado this fall. This year, Michael is also participating in the Green Faith Rising Leaders Fellowship program. The Rising Leaders Fellowship brings together youth, adult faith leaders from across the country to support them in their growth as faith-focused community organizers and advocates for climate justice. So good morning again, and you are welcome here. If you are watching now or in the future, you are welcome. If you're a longtime member or brand new, you are welcome here. We Unitarian Universalists are one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We're a multi-faith religious community where all are welcome, diversity is celebrated, and questions expected. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome. If this is your first time with us, we would love to be in touch with you. If you have not already done so, please go to our welcome desk located out in the entrance. And if you're on YouTube, you can visit our website. Simply Google First Unitarian of Pittsburgh. And you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter found at the bottom of the webpage. You're also invited to join us for social time on Zoom following this live worship. To get a Zoom link, please send an email to firstunitarianpittsburgh@gmail.com. There was an announcement I was asked to read. So you may notice the pillowcases around the sanctuary, as well as hanging up downstairs in the undercroft. These were lovingly created by the Pillowcase Brigade, which is a subgroup of the Women's Alliance. In August, these pillows will be taken to the Children's Hospital, where patients will be given one to make their stay brighter. Next week, the Pillowcase Parade is hosting our social hour, where they will be welcoming donations to assist in the cost of the fabric. Thank you.
Good morning again. My name is Michael DeSantis, as Robert said. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a fairly mask-presenting, white, non-binary person in my late 20s, and I've got long brown hair that's pulled back in a bun today. I'm also wearing a light green button-down shirt that has a floral print and a dark pink blazer. We turn now to our chalice lighting. The chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Our chalice beckons to us, reminding us of the light of truth, of the truths that we know and proclaim here. The truth that true justice requires not immunity, but accountability. That we are called to use our power not for gain, but for good, and that we show our truest values not in what we say, but in what we do and in how we live. Now I invite you all to rise in body and spirit as you are able to sing our opening hymn, number 128, For All That Is Our Life. That's in the gray hymnal, number 128.
So there actually was one more announcement that I forgot to mention. So in the order of service, the hymn, Singing for Our Children, It's listed as $295, but it's actually $395. So now we have our collective grounding. You can find it in the order of service on the first page. And please join me in reading this as you feel comfortable. We name our collective recommitment to care for the earth. Knowing the ground we live upon is sacred, we pledge to bring new life to the earth, new life to the air, new life to the waters, new life to each other, for all life is sacred.
I now invite all of our youth and little ones to come forward for our Story for All today. And I'll be joined again by my partner Pearl, who's going to be helping with holding our book and doing story time. So come on down for story time. Got a couple takers. All right. All right, there we are. Look at that. So our book today is written by Carol Lindstrom and is illustrated by Michaela Goad, and these are both Indigenous authors. Right, we are water protectors. Water is the first medicine, Nokomis told me. We come from water. It nourished us inside our mother's body as it nourishes us here on Mother Earth. Water is sacred, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. The river's rhythm runs through my veins, runs through my people's veins. My people talk of a black snake that will destroy the land. And in the upper right-hand corner, we see there's a black snake across the land here, going towards the sun. A black snake that will spoil the water, poison plants and animals, wreck everything in its path. When my people first spoke of the black snake, they foretold that it wouldn't come for many, many years. Now, the black snake is here. Its venom burns the land, courses through the water, making it unfit to drink. What do you think our black snake looks like?
More metal. It's like a robot.
Like more like metal, like a robot? Yeah.
By humans. Other humans.
Other humans? Other humans. We think other humans have, that's really good. And what's coming out of our snake's mouth here? What do you think that looks like? Maybe fire? Do you think it looks a little like fire, maybe? Maybe a little bit? We're not so sure. We're not so sure about fire. It's really good. So our snake here it's a pipeline that carries oil. That's what our snake is. And it is made of metal. So you were totally right on there. Good job. So we're back to our main character here. Take courage. I must keep the black snake away from my village's water. I must rally my people together. To stand for the water, to stand for the land, to stand as one against the black snake. And we see there's a whole group of people standing together, some of them in traditional regalia. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. It will not be easy. The little girl is facing the snake with its fire tongues sticking out. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, the winged ones, the crawling ones, the four-legged, the two-legged, the plants, trees, rivers, lakes, the earth. We are all related. Tears like waterfalls stream down, tracks down my face, tracks down my people's faces. Water has its own spirit, Nokomis told me. Water is alive. Water remembers our ancestors who came before us, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. We are stewards of the earth. Our spirits have not been broken. We are water protectors. We stand. The black snake is in for the fight of its life. And here we have a whole crowd with signs and protest signs and banners saying things like, "No dapple, protect the sacred, and water is life."
Kind of like a parade.
Kind of like a parade, exactly. Kind of like a parade, standing up for the earth and the water and standing up to protect their people. And with that, that's the end of our story time. So let's sing our children out. Number 395, 395.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice. Sing and rejoice.
Every month, we share our generosity with a designated organization. This month, it is Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania. All donations are shared 50-50 with this organization unless otherwise designated. Our religious community is made up of volunteers and staff, creating and hosting a variety of programming. We rely on your financial support. In addition to the collection plate, you can donate by texting GIVE to 412-435-1050 and following the directions. Please check the end of the order of service for more directions. The offering will now be gratefully received to support the work, wonder, and witness of our religious community. I now invite the ushers to come forward.
I There are more mountains falling, I know there are more mountains falling, I know. There are more mountains falling, they will find their way to me. There are more mountains falling, I know there are more mountains falling, I know. I will wade through the waters, I know, I will wade through the waters, I know. I will wade through the waters when they find their way to me. I will wade through the waters, I know, I know. I will wade through the waters, I know. I will walk through the fires, I know, I will walk through the fires, I know. I will walk through the fires when they find their way to me. I will walk through the fires, I know, I know. I will walk through the fires, I know. And I will rebuild the mountains, I know, I know. I will rebuild the mountains, I know. I will rebuild the mountains when they find their way to me. I will rebuild the mountains, I know, I know. I will rebuild the mountains before I go. There are more waters rising, I know, I know. There are more waters rising, I know.
We now come to the sharing of joy and sorrows. We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. We remember those who are experiencing losses of various kinds and those facing health challenges. We are aware that many are faced with heightened difficulties presented by these times that continue to be challenging for all. May those who suffer or mourn find peace. May those who hunger or thirst be quenched with nourishment and sated with the elixir of life. May those who have experienced violence find care and comfort and the healing that comes in time. May all of us find the loving kindness that is ours to share. May we open our hearts and minds to encircle with love and care all in our community and beyond. So may it be. Amen. Namaste, and blessed be. And today we're actually going to have a breath meditation. Has anyone meditated before or does meditate as a practice? Okay, I see a few people. If you haven't, don't worry. This is extremely simple. It's only going to be 30 seconds. I know meditation can scare some people. I've been to retreats where you meditate all day. But we're going to do a very short breath meditation. So for those of you who would like to join in, please sit comfortably. If you're able to sit upright, you can put your hands on your knees or in your lap, or just sit in any way that's particularly comfortable for you. You can keep your eyes closed, halfway open, and we're just going to breathe in and breathe out, and we're just going to focus our thoughts on the breathing in and the breathing out. So let's do that for about 30 seconds. All right. Welcome back. So we didn't plan this. I don't think anyone knew that I was going to lead a meditation, and I wasn't aware that they picked our next hymn, which is 1009, Meditation on Breathing. It's in the Till hymnal, so it just kind of worked out that way. So that's 1009, Meditation on Breathing in the Till hymnal.
And we're going to sing this through twice, the melody, and then I'm going to start the descant after that, and anyone can join me, or you can stay with Sue and do the melody. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Today's reading is an excerpt from the Introduction to Justice on Earth. This is by the Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti, an Indian American UU minister currently serving as the senior minister of the First UU congregation of Ann Arbor, Michigan. In the fall of 2013, I received an unusual invitation from the Unitarian Universalist Ministry for the Earth, known as UUMFE. It was an invitation to attend something the organizers were billing as a collaborative laboratory in Detroit the following March. I was a bit perplexed. While I have always cared about the environment, I would not have called myself an environmentalist. Within Unitarian Universalism, I had been a leader in our people of color community and a proponent of issues related to racial, cultural, and ethnic diversity. None of my work within Unitarian Universalism to date had been related to environmentalism, and so I was left wondering why the UUMFE was extending this invitation to me. That experience in Detroit was, for me, a primer on America's troubled and complicated history with urban minority populations. Like many cities across the American landscape, Detroit had lost well-paying manufacturing jobs in the 1960s and 1970s. Simultaneously, with the civil rights groups pressing for racial integration in schools, housing, and other settings, many Caucasian Americans began moving to the suburbs. With the economic collapse came the crash of residential housing markets in Detroit and many other cities. Middle-class housing suddenly became affordable housing, thereby attracting populations with more limited financial means, typically African American and Latinx communities. Across the United States, this phenomenon had taken place in other major urban centers over and over again with the exact same results. As white middle-class populations abandoned the urban setting, minority and poorer populations became the dominant groups. But as the collaboratory helped bring alive, the story didn't end there. As these urban centers became impoverished communities with relatively less political clout, policy decisions were made in the ensuing decades that led to poor and non-white communities becoming the destination for the waste and pollution of the more affluent, typically white communities. Locating power plants, waste facilities, and pollution-generating industries in minority and lower-income settings became the national norm. This further depressed housing prices in those areas, creating a whole new set of additional problems: illnesses related to pollutants, trouble with water quality, a rise in cancer and childhood asthma rates, among others. In the decades since the collapse of urban manufacturing, we, as a nation, have taken an already difficult social economic situation and made it worse. I knew about all of this on some unspoken, subconscious level. As Americans, we're not supposed to talk about the fact that our middle class may be built on the backs of our poor and brown and black folks. But to experience this reality firsthand, to be in Detroit standing on the sidewalk as a garbage truck from Grosse Pointe, an affluent community approximately 15 miles away, pulls in to drop off trash in an African American and Latinx neighborhood, left my heart in deep pain. As a society, we have learned to turn a blind eye to the racialized, highly oppressive, and reinforcing cycles of poverty in these urban zones. Standing in the parking lot of a public elementary school, the student body of which is 90% African American, smelling the fumes from the incinerator situated next door is enough to bring tears to one's eyes.
For all life is a gift that we are called to use. That's what we're told in the hymn that we sang earlier, a hymn that has long been one of my favorites in our UU hymnal. It was one of the most frequently played songs at my first UU church, which I began attending in my early 20s. I love that hymn. I absolutely love it. The melody, the message of gratitude, the memories that it stirs up in me, memories of my first UU church where I finally found a spiritual home I could call my own, and where I eventually discerned my own call to ministry in our UU tradition. But I must tell you all that in recent months, something about that hymn has begun to feel a little off to me. Begun to sit uneasily in my mind and in my heart and in my body. At first I couldn't quite put my finger on what was feeling a little off. But something about it just felt wrong, out of step with the message that is at the core of so much of my preaching, a message that you all have now heard a couple times over these last few months. A message about us being called to center our lives around radical love, a radical love that pulls us ever deeper into relationships of intentionality and caring, relationships with the people around us and also the other beings and the planet, as we've heard about in some of our readings today. For weeks, I wrestled with this hymn. I kept turning it over and over in my mind, and sometimes also turned it over on my tongue, speaking it out loud, trying to figure out what it was. And after weeks of reflecting on it, an answer finally came to me while I was sitting in one of my seminary classes, staring out the window. For all life is a gift that we are called to use. To use. Use, I thought to myself. We are called, the hymn tells us, by God or the Spirit or the universe. It's not entirely clear, but we are called to use life to build the common good, Okay, I thought to myself, that fair enough. But also to use all life to make our own days glad. Really, I wondered to myself. The universe, the spirit of life and of love, calls on us to use all life, all the trees, all the flowers, all the other plants, all the reptiles and the insects and the birds and the animals, all of the ecosystems of Earth, to use all of it, to use all life, to make ourselves happy. That seems pretty self-serving. Here in America, we live in a culture of use, a consumer culture. This, I'm sure, is not news to anybody who is sitting here. You have heard this before, I'm sure. Too often, the consumer culture that dominates here in the United States, it reduces the world around us, a world that is teeming with life and with complexity and with systems. And for some of us here, divine power throughout the earth. Our culture of use reduces all of this to a collection of objects and things and resources. Resources for us to extract through things like pipelines, like we heard about in our story for all ages, to extract and to turn into products. Products that we consume and ultimately that we use. Sometimes for the common good, absolutely, sometimes for the common good. But if we're being honest for ourselves, sometimes, all too often, products that we use to make our own days glad. As you use, we have long spoken out about the danger of this kind of consumer culture, about its profoundly destructive impact on the planet and all of the life that calls this planet home. That's why I don't need to tell you about the rising seas or the Great Pacific Garbage Patch or the increasing instances and severity of extreme weather like wildfires and hurricanes and droughts, and here in Pittsburgh, warmer summers. I'm sure that you all have heard many good sermons about the climate crisis and know a lot of what it's going to take to prevent the worst case scenarios. But we hear about this so often, dear ones. We hear about this crisis so often that I think sometimes, and it can be so overwhelming that sometimes I think we overlook that at its core, at the core of our climate crisis, there's also a deep spiritual crisis, a spiritual rot. Because our climate crisis isn't just a profound scientific problem and a humanitarian crisis, though it is absolutely those things, but it's also reflective of a larger spiritual shortcoming in our society. Because make no mistake, a culture of use that tears up the earth and packages it up for us in a bunch of shiny products, a culture that says all life is a gift for us to use and that thou shalt use, that culture, the dominant culture here in the United States, is spiritually bankrupt. And so our response, our religious response, as religious people, as Unitarian Universalists, it has to address not only the moral imperative and the scientific challenges of our times, but also the spiritual one, the spiritual crisis that lies at the heart of our culture of use. And when we approach the climate crisis through this kind of spiritual lens, we realize just how pervasive the effects of our culture of use are. And I think that taking a spiritual lens also helps us to realize how interconnected our climate crisis is with all other issues of justice, the other injustices that our society perpetuates, from racism to classism to patriarchy and so forth. But these issues are indeed so deeply intertwined, as our reading from Reverend Manish reminded us today, and as we saw in that example from the We Are Water Protectors book. They affect communities like Indigenous communities all the time. This reminds us that the effects of climate change and environmental destruction are so often borne by marginalized communities. Here in the US, that's Black and brown communities, and immigrant and poor communities, and yes, our Indigenous communities. It's in places like Detroit, as we heard about in the reading, but it's also closer to home here in Pittsburgh. That's why our region's only remaining steel mill, a mill which, like all steel mills, emits pollutants that include metals and hazardous chemicals, exposure to which, according to medical studies, cause a range of severe health issues, including cancer, as well as disorders of the blood and the heart and the kidneys and the reproductive system and the central nervous system, all from one mill. It's why that last mill that we have here in Pittsburgh is in Braddock, a community where 70% of the residents are Black, in a city where only 23% of the residents are Black, and in a county where only 13% are. And it's not just in Braddock. One recent study by researchers from several of our universities and the county health department found that our county's most polluted census tracts are often in poor and BIPOC communities, while those with the cleanest air and the cleanest water are in wealthier and whiter communities. This results in hundreds of additional deaths in our BIPOC and low-income communities each year. So these communities are what those of us who work in environmental justice call frontline communities. Frontline communities, communities that have been marginalized by all of our systems of oppression, all of the isms, all of the phobias. And this means that it also includes, of course, whole nations in the global south. Frontline communities. Communities and entire countries in regions that have benefited the least from our rush to industrialization, only to have their lives most torn asunder by the climate crisis' impacts. The upshot here is that in much the same way that our consumer culture uses the earth for our benefit, our society is also using frontline communities, is using them as a buffer between privileged groups and the worst effects of climate change, is using frontline communities and the places they reside as receptacles for some of the most severe consequences of our ecological sins as a society. And this form of use is inextricably linked to the way we use the planet. In an essay reflecting on the ways that this connection happens, the Reverend Dr. Sophia Betancourt, who, as some of you know, is the president of our National Unitarian Universalist Association and is herself a Yale-trained environmental ethicist. In this essay, Reverend Dr. Betancourt rightly notes that our dominant approach to this consumer culture and our climate activism creates groups of quote-unquote disposable people. Groups whose disposability is defined by class, race, ethnicity, and nation. Disposable people, alongside disposable products, on disposable land and disposable water, inhabited by disposable animals on a disposable planet, disposable all the way down. This is the unnatural but inevitable result of our culture of use. This is a heartbreaking cycle, as Reverend Manish Mishra Marzetti reminds us in our reading today. A heartbreaking cycle, one that should break our hearts to hear about, one that should break our hearts to realize the ways that we participate in it and that we are forced to participate in it by the dominant society. And so our UU religious response to the climate crisis, our response as a people of faith who put love at the center, it has to get not only at the climate issues, but at the culture of use itself. Our religious response must be radically countercultural and deeply spiritual. In our world that commands us to use the earth and to make our own days glad, we must declare emphatically, "Thou shalt not use, thou shalt not use." And we must also look inward and make an internal commitment, saying, "We will not use, we will not use." We will not use the planet or its resources or its life or its people strictly for our benefit. We will not allow to any people or plants or animals or anything else on earth to be made disposable. But also, As UUs, we recognize that we need more than a directive of what not to do. That's why so many of us are weary of these kind of religious commandments that tell us what we can't do, no matter how well-intentioned they are, like this rule I keep saying, thou shalt not use. Confession time. I'm so unaccustomed to using this language of thou shalt not use that the last time I gave a version of this sermon, I actually messed up the wording and said thou shalt use, no T. I was so unused to using this King James version with the thou shalt not use. So we need something besides what we're not supposed to do. So what is it that we should actually be doing? What is it that we should be doing as a religious people, as Unitarian Universalists, in the face of climate crisis and climate injustice? Well, here I think the new articulation of the core values of our UU faith gives us some really good guidance. As some of you know, at this year's General Assembly, which concluded just 2 weeks ago, delegates voted to adopt a new central statement of our faith, a new set of values that replaces the 8 principles. And this is a big conversation, one that I don't quite have time to get into. But this new set of values makes some really key changes to our articulation of our care for the environment. And each of these new values, there's not just a value, but a covenant. It's a commitment that we make as a people of faith to live out our values, a way that we're going to put this value into practice. And here's the covenant that our UU values make for the value of interdependence. Interdependence. We covenant to protect the earth and all beings from exploitation. We will create and nurture sustainable relationships of care and respect, mutuality and justice. We will work to repair harm and damaged relationships. Relationships, 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 relationships. Relationships of care and respect, relationships of mutuality and of justice, deep relationships, my friends, ones in which we seek to atone for harm and in which we seek to repair harm that's been done. In the face of our culture of use, a culture that is so often disconnects us and calls us to use things for our own good, our UU faith calls us to embrace a spirituality of radical relationship. Radical relationship to each other, to the earth, to frontline communities, to all beings, to all forms of life, and to all of Earth's non-living resources too. For many of us, this is nothing less than a full paradigm shift, a way of completely reorienting the way that we relate to the world around us. And it's a paradigm that we have to embrace. We must embrace this new paradigm that no longer sings out, for all life is a gift that we are called to use, however good our intentions for that use are, but one that instead calls us to sing out, all life is a gift, period. End of sentence. All life is a gift. And because all life is a gift, all life, not just human life, because all life is a gift, because all of this earth is a blessing, this means that the earth, not just human life, but earth is inherently worthy. And therefore, all life, all of earth has a right, as our first principle has long stated, to flourish with dignity, love, and compassion. All life, all life. My point here is not to outline every single action that we have to take to get there, every single action that we must put into practice. My goal is instead to point us towards the kind of world that we need to envision. A world characterized not by use or disposability all the way down, but by relationships all the way down. A world characterized by relationships of mutuality and care that pave the way towards environmental justice and all other forms of justice, each of them intertwined. A just world built on the foundation of caring relationships, relationships that we begin to form here in places like our religious communities and in this church, and then that we radiate outwards. And if we begin from this place of deep caring relationship, Because if we begin here, justice will naturally follow. Because if we desire relationships of care and mutuality and we work towards them, we'll end up connecting with frontline communities. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because our love calls us to do it. Our care will call us into deep relationship with frontline communities, whether or not we belong to them. It'll call us into relationship with the Braddocks and the Detroits and the indigenous communities like the Ojibwe and the Tlingit and the Haida, to which our Story for All Ages authors belong. And through these relationships of care with frontline communities, we'll realize that they already know the solutions they need and that they already have solutions that they know will work if only the world would listen and do its part in bringing them about. Dear ones, it is only in this way that we can bring about the beloved community, by building it one relationship at a time. Only in this way can we begin to imagine a world that avoids the worst case scenarios of climate change, a world that no longer relies on extracting fossil fuels or using them or anything as we please. A world where we not only recognize that we are all in this together, we are all related as our Story for All Ages told us, and we are all interdependent as our values tell us. Only in this way can we begin and continue to live into a world with love and relationships at its center. May we live into this world, and may we be blessed by this relational world and by every single relationship that makes it up. May this be so, and amen. And now let's rise in body or in spirit as able and sing number 175. We celebrate the web of life. Number 175 in the gray hymnal.
Jill points out that this is probably the only hymn that you will ever sing that has the word barnacle in it. So enjoy it. We celebrate the web of life, its magnitude we sing, for we can see divinity in every living thing. A fragment of the perfect whole, in cactus and in grain, as much in time in bargain blue as in the great blue whale. Our nation dreams the honor sun, our bones sink stone to stone, and by no future words to come, with worlds that were and are. Respect the water and the air, which evil creatures birth. Protect by lives of all that share the glory of the earth.
Thank you. We now turn to the chalice. Please feel free in joining me in the reading. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
My friends, let us remember that all life is a gift to be cherished, not used, a gift to be held tenderly in loving, right relationship. And may this remembering lead us into a spirituality of radical relationship to the world around us. Go in peace, practice love. Amen.